Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sports Debate. I'm Ryan. We've got Dwayne. We've got Emmanuel. And today we're just going to kind of be doing the thing we did, if any of you were watching back in the day. We did a thing called Week in Review. So when there's not playoffs or big games, big topics to cover, we're just going to talk about what's been going on in sports, specifically the NBA and NFL. Baseball content, I'll keep doing my thing. I might post some videos. We'll see how it goes. We've got some microphones here. We're trying to figure this thing out. So hopefully we sound a little crispier today. So without further ado, let's begin in the NBA. And this was a big week of games. There were some really good matchups, some really competitive games. And the big one was the Lakers and the Mavericks. Now they weren't full strength because AD was still hurt, but this was still a great game. Lakers ended up winning 107-99, but in the fourth quarter, it was tied 1 point game. It was looking really good down to the finish. Luka, triple double, doing his thing. He was passing dimes all around. LeBron, 27 points, 12 rebounds. Austin Reeves, 20 points. He looked really good. And Kyrie had 35 for the Mavericks. Clay was shooting really good and then really bad. I was watching this game like the rest of America. It was really fun to see kind of all the emotions, all the energy on both sides. So, Dwayne, I want to start with you. What major takeaways do you have from this game?
I think that this game was more or less an eye opener for both teams, where they're at. A centerless Mavs were able to keep up with LeBron and Luka and Austin Reeves. And I feel like for the Mavs, that's an eye opener. Like, okay, we are actually, even without our key aspects, we are a very solid team. And I still see, in a sense, for the right now, that the Mavs won that trade. Because if you look at it in that sense, they were out of big man and were tied for most of the game. That's pretty impressive. You had Kyrie playing amazing defense. I mean, let's be real. Kyrie's a small dude, but yet we saw him get a block, a couple of steals, and a couple of deflections. It's just the Mavs need to look at that and be very happy about where they are. And I'm not saying that, they're happy that Luka's gone. I think they should be happy that for what they have at the moment, they can still make a great playoff push.
Takeaways from the game, the Mavericks have created a monster. And I have to take back what I said about OKC being fine in the NBA or fine in the West. Very much not fine. But in this game, we saw how good the Mavs could be if they were healthy. They were able to keep up with the Lakers, like Dwayne said, without having their big men. We also saw that Luka Doncic can play perfectly fine, looking at you, Dwayne, with LeBron James. I mean, that man out there was looking like Magic Johnson out there. Those passes he was doing, they were great. I mean, just great job out there. And shout out to the Mavs. They were hanging into the game for most of it until like late in the fourth, where it started to slip away from them. The game was really great. AR-15 improving so much since last year. LeBron James, now having Lake or Luka on the Lakers, this may very well be the reason why LeBron stays in the league for maybe a couple more years.
I think the Mavericks are definitely a deeper team right now, just because of post trade, even getting rid of Luka. They still have a lot of depth, even with all their big men injured. So they did last long, but I still think if they had a big man, they could have easily won that game because they were outscored in the paint 52-34. And the Lakers have what? Jackson Hayes in there, and he was getting pushed around by some guys smaller than him. As much as they did put up a good fight, there was definitely something missing. And I think one of the big things missing was a paint presence because, I mean, how many times Luka would just chuck it into LeBron underneath the basket? They scored like 3 times that way late in the game, and that put them over the top. The big difference I saw, though, with the Lakers offense was when Luka was off the court, they looked a little lost. And that's when the Mavs went on their runs and Kyrie was cooking and Clay was shooting and the Mavs offense was really moving the ball well. They looked good. Then Luka would come back on and he'd just start passing dimes behind the back to Austin Reeves, lobbing his big men. and then the Lakers would go on a little bit of a run, and the Mavericks offense couldn't keep up with that. Obviously, Luke is going to get more and more minutes as he goes on. He's still kind of easing into it, but they're going to want to figure out what other options they have when Luka's off the court, when LeBron's off the court, because these guys are going to need to rest at some point. But yeah, it was a really fun game. And I think both teams are in a good situation post trade. If Anthony Davis can come back and be healthy into the playoffs, Mavericks are just as scary. Lakers put LeBron and Luka in the playoffs. Like, I'm really hoping that we can see these teams match up in the playoffs, whether it's a first round or conference finals or whatever, because that will be really fun.
Last night, actually, against the Clippers, the Lakers played obviously the Clippers, and I thought Jackson Hayes did a pretty good job. I didn't expect him to be a serviceable center. I really thought he was just going to get bodied almost every game, but he seemed to be a good serviceable center. Though obviously they still need a big man.
And the Lakers, they are on a bit of a win streak here, 5-game win streak. Their last 4 wins: Denver, Dallas, Minnesota, Clippers. So 4 playoff teams, 4 very talented teams, and the Lakers handled them all. And Luka's averaging 21, 8, and 6 since joining the team. They're 5-2 with him, so it's looking good in LA.
And somebody said that they wouldn't win 50% of their games in that stretch. Not to name names.
I really didn't think so. And just a quick comment on their offense. I feel like their offense is okay. I can't say that. I mean, the offense is good enough to beat the teams that they beat with 100%, and I won't deny that. But let's say Luka has an off game or LeBron has an off game. They're that goes. I mean, they're that offense goes entirely. I mean, AR is a reliable person, but I just they how do I explain? You know, there's a scene from a movie that reminded me of what they did. They just passed the ball back and forth to each other. LeBron caught it in the paint, passed it back out to Luka, and it was just a funny thing. But you got to think those are the two people that are getting the ball 99% of the time at every point of the shot clock. So though their offense is okay, when it comes playoff time, I don't think it'll be the same.
So some other teams in the Western Conference were facing off, and notably it was the Thunder and the Timberwolves. And the Timberwolves were down 25, came back to beat OKC. Was it in overtime?
In overtime.
Yeah, in overtime. So a crazy game there. For the Timberwolves, it wasn't even Anthony Edwards doing all the work. Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker combined for 70 points. And SGA and J-Dub combined for 66. So the Timberwolves' depth is looking really good. So Emmanuel, as our resident OKC fan, did you have any concerns after this game? Now, this is in hindsight because they have won 2 games since that against lesser competitive teams, but watching them play a team they might see in the playoffs, did you have any concerns?
Yeah. So my concern is a small concern is closing out games and pushing the momentum. When the Timberwolves were down, I believe, by 17 points, they subbed in their bench, and that bench showed that they wanted the game way more than the Thunder did. And that's really sparked the Timberwolves back to life and gave them the chance to push ahead and win this game. Not only that, but OKC has the tools to win that game. As you see, they only lost by 3. But what really hurt Oklahoma City was the missing wide open 3-point shots. These were good looks. They just weren't going in, and that was really the deciding factor for this game. We were playing good defense. We kept Anthony Edwards to only 17 points. So obviously when you keep Anthony Edwards to 17 points, you're expecting the team to win. But when we don't stop the bench and we let them score on us, it really hurts. But again, we also were missing Chet Holmgren that game, and we're going to be missing him again. I believe he just got injured during the Atlanta Hawks game, I believe either last night or 2 nights ago. So our big man situation with Chet, it's questionable. And honestly, I can't wait for him to be back for the playoffs if he stays healthy, if he can stay healthy. Also, by the way, our 3-point shooting was 15 for 49. So
for me, even though this team is a little bit experienced, I would say at this point, because they're still a young team. And sometimes younger teams fall under the impression that we're up, we're good. And in this league now, that's not how that works. It's the it's a game of runs. And because it's a game of runs, you need to keep your foot on the pedal 100% of the time. It's more or less, it is a concern for me as a watcher. If I'm looking for how to help this younger team, it was to tell them, keep your foot on the pedal as much as you can. Because come playoff time, you might be blowing out teams. That's just the type of team they are. But don't get under the illusion you're up, you're good.
Yeah, so staying with you, Dwayne, looking at the Timberwolves, do you think that they're more of a title threat than maybe we thought, especially after trading Towns and you're looking at their record this year, beating the number one seed in overtime, and Anthony Edwards has 17 points? That's something to be excited about if they can make that work.
I mean, I think they're the same thing as last year to me because of Anthony Edwards. The same thing, like they're still a threat, but a low key threat. They're not one of those teams where you run into them, it's going to be, oh, like this is easy. You're still going to have to play your best basketball because they will take advantage if you don't. To say they're more lethal in a sense or whatnot, not really. Yeah, for me, the combination of Rudy and Randall still brings them down, in my personal opinion. I still think the greatness of Anthony Edwards and all those other players that they have in Nas Reed and Walker, that's what's going to make them so strong in this playoff.
Yeah, I just want to add on to that Julius Randle comment. He didn't play last night, and the floor spacing for the Minnesota Timberwolves was just a lot better. So I think if he gets back onto that floor, it might hurt the Timberwolves more than help with the floor spacing. Another thing I would just want to quickly throw out there for the Timberwolves game against OKC was the second chance points. Oh my goodness,
Mm.
they were out. I mean, they were doing it out there, and that really hurt us a lot. Second chance points were just killing us, but other than that, it was a pretty good game.
Not this coming week, but next week, March 9th to the 16th. OKC's schedule is 2 games against Denver, Boston, Detroit, and Milwaukee. Those last 3 on the road. What is their record that week, do you think?
We only dropped one of those games. Pretty confident in them. I mean, Milwaukee, not really that worried. Nuggets might be a threat. Other than that, I'm not really worried about the Celtics.
I love the confidence. All right. Looking at a team that is going in a downward trajectory because of some recent things here. The San Antonio Spurs. We talked about a little bit about Wemby. He's out for the rest of the season with a blood clot in his shoulder. So one of those injuries that you just hate to see because it's nothing that happened on the floor. It's just pops out of nowhere. So he's out for the year. And their Hall of Fame coach, Greg Popovich, who was dealing with a stroke, is also going to be sitting out the remainder of the season. His future is in the air. We don't know if he'll come back or he's going to retire for good. So the Spurs are without their superstar and without their legendary coach. Luckily, they did trade for De'Aaron Fox, and he is playing well for them. But they find themselves 24-33, 5.5 out of a play-in. They've lost 4 in a row. So, Dwayne, is this over for the Spurs? How do they move forward here? Should they try to stay competitive? What are you looking at?
What I'm really looking at, and this is out of pure respect to Pop, I think they might need to look for a new head coach. I think Pop has had such a great career and he's such a great head coach. I mean, just look at what his own players have said about him, what his staff has said about him. Looking forward, it's time to look for a new head coach, maybe someone in the organization. The person they have right now is okay, but I'd rather find someone a little better. But when you look at the season, I mean, this is just tank at this point. First of all, Wemby is such a floor just monster in alien in the funny sense. Like he really is what gives them life. No disrespect to De'Aaron Fox. He's their main guy. And once he's gone, you could have made a playoff push or something small like that. But once you don't got him, that's it. It's done. And out of respect for the team, just decide to tank, get some good players because there's great players in this draft. It doesn't even have to be the one. Just tank and rest out the rest of the season.
Spurs are missing a huge player here in Wemby. You're missing a lock for Defensive Player of the Year, and you're missing Greg Popovich. I really hope he gets better. I hope Wemby gets better. I love these two guys. They're great. What I see the Spurs doing here is you just have to tank. It's the season's over. You're missing your central piece, which is Victor Wembanyama. You don't really have a chance to make. I mean, you have a chance to make it into the plan, but once you get there, what are you going to do? I know you still have a young, talented roster with Jeremy Sochan. You have Stefan Castle, who's a great player. You got these young guys, and you could potentially push forward, but without Wemby, I don't see you making any moves in the playoffs or playing. So I see you just taking the L this season and just moving on.
Yeah, it's definitely hard. I'm looking at who their center is right now. Bismack Biyombo. There's a name. And behind him, Sixers legend Charles Bassey. So not a great situation. And I mean, their whole play style is built around your 7-footer. It's definitely going to be hard for them. And they really they weren't in a good spot with Wemby necessarily. If they were in the playoffs or in the play-in and this happened, can still make a run with Fox and the young guys. But they were already kind of out of it. They weren't playing well. I mean, I'm looking at their recent schedule. They dropped 2 in a row to the Pelicans. Like, if you're doing that, you know, and like we said, it's a really young team. So I think, in a sense, they can look at this. Okay, pressure's off for this year. Now let's let these young guys continue to grow, continue to get better. Let Fox get built into the program because you have him for next year, which is really good. And he'll be more comfortable with this team and with these players by the time hopefully Wemby comes back next year. And then you can make a run there. So I think because they weren't competitive before, I think it's just nail in the coffin. It's really unfortunate, but all eyes towards next year, hopefully.
I just want to say one more thing. De'Aaron Fox has the chance to learn from Chris Paul, and there's not a single player in the NBA that could not learn a single thing from Chris Paul. So this will more than likely elevate the game and the young guys that are already on this team. So I see this team next year being a guaranteed lock for a playoff, maybe a top 5 seed.
All right, another major injury that ends a player's season, Joel Embiid. We talked a bit about him last episode as we ranted about the Sixers for a bit. And Emmanuel was bringing up the fact that he needs knee surgery, but they're sending him back out there. Well, he's getting that surgery. He's done for the year. They're shutting him down. And the Sixers, similar to the Spurs, weren't playing well. And this is just the nail on the coffin in what was a season from hell for the Sixers. I mean, I don't even know. They're 20-38. They are still 3 out of the play-ins, so they could like accidentally make it. You got like the Bulls and the Hawks ahead of you, so that's still possible. But they've lost 9 in a row, and it's not looking too good right now. I think we can all agree that the Sixers should just kind of not try, just kind of if you happen. I mean, at this point, do we? Because if I feel like we make the play-in, then we lose a good draft spot. Like, should we try? What's the situation with the OKC pick? Isn't it if it goes
If we're
outside the top
outside
6,
of the
they get
top
it?
6, yes, that's correct.
Okay,
And
so
we
yeah,
are
we
we are the
should.
number 6 seed. I believe we have the number 6 spot right now.
Yeah, so why don't I think we can all agree that's what we do there. But I want to look at Embiid specifically. I mean, this is like his 3rd knee surgery. There hasn't been too much conversation, but Emmanuel, what's the rest of Embiid's career look like? I mean, is it done for? What are we looking at?
I don't think Embiid's career is over. Even it's really hard to say with this injury history that his career isn't over. It's seriously in question. However, I won't even blame Embiid. I blame the Sixers organization more than anything for allowing this to happen, knowing darn well what his health is like. You need to make sure he rests and takes care of it, so maybe it won't become an issue again. So I'm glad he's getting the knee surgery, but I'm so hesitant to say that his career isn't over. His play style is all about his footwork and everything. And with his knee, he's a big man. He's aggressive when it comes to the paint. So I'm really worried about that because most of the time he does flop a lot. So you often see him clashing. I want to say against the Celtics couple games ago. Maybe he fell. He was laying on the ground for a bit after he hit his knee. I was extremely worried. I was holding my breath like always every time he goes flying through the air. So I won't say his career is over, but
I don't think his career is over. I just think he really needs to take the time to recover. Whether the Sixers organization tells him to play or not, I feel like it's an Embiid choice. I need Embiid to prioritize his health this offseason more than he's ever had. Now, whether his career is staying with the Sixers is neither here nor there. Him getting healthy is the key aspect of this. I mean, though I would want him to stay a Sixer and be healthy and we win the ship, that might not what we are looking at. And I wouldn't near say his career is over. We've had players that have had similar injuries, haven't come back the same as they are, but still had a career. So I don't think his career is necessarily over. I just think more or less that if he does what he needs to do, then we'll, still be okay. He'll still be okay. Because think about it, and healthy Embiid won an MVP. Even a semi-healthy Embiid won an MVP. So when we look at that, we say if he actually gets healthy, does what he needs to do, we should probably say that his career is going to last him another 5 years.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting because we've thrown out the idea of maybe exploring the trade market, but I mean, what even is the trade market for him at this point? He's only 30, but he's owed 51 million this year, 55 million next year, and then it starts that 3-year extension that he signed for 26 through 28, 59 million, 64 million, a player option in 28, 29 when he's 34. I mean, what do we even do with him at that point? No one wants to take that. We'd have to be willing to take on a bulk of that in a trade. Quoting Keith Smith, NBA reporter, says the 76ers could petition for a medical retirement for Joel Embiid if he's unable to play a year from now. And that means an independent doctor selected by the NBA would examine Embiid. And if it's agreed that he can no longer play, his remaining contract would be wiped off the books by the Sixers. So that's best case for the Sixers in that situation, because they're like, look, we don't want to pay you if you're not going to play, and if we can't get rid of you.
I have a question though to that.
Yeah.
So is it that he can't play at all, or he can't play like a majority or even like half the season? What's the conditions for it can't play? Like,
Yeah,
if he
that's a
can't
good
play at
question.
all, because I feel like Kawhi would have had that done to him.
When we got to consider how much the organization is paying whoever is under this question, being able to play is being able to play more than 50% of the games, in which certain people should be under that. Like, I agree with Kawhi should be under that, but Embiid is heavily under that because of how many times he's done it, for most of his career. And it's not necessarily his fault. I think that's an aspect that not a lot of people understand. Him getting injured is because of the way he plays and the way he is. And sometimes he just gets struck with something. I mean, the whole thing with his face a year ago in the playoffs, like no one could predict that. But here we were trying to make sure he was okay. I think when we look at it, we should really be like, oh dang, for Embiid, not oh my God, he always injured, blah blah blah. Like if that was family member, like that would be rough to sit there and have someone go through that. So I think even though he gets a lot of flack for the way he plays, we need to just make sure he gets as healthy as he possibly can. Maybe he can't be 100%, understand, but get him to at least 75, 80%.
I don't think that's something the Sixers want to do, that post. I think that was just the answer as to what can the Sixers do to get out of that situation. And that's not something you want to see for any player. I'm sure it's happened before, medical retirement. I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but I don't know if that's an Embiid decision or if it's a league decision, if it's a Sixers decision. But that would be a very interesting situation for sure.
So for the Sixers, obviously we're tanking. Who are you guys excited to see that's like not a star player, like a bench player, to perform on the Sixers?
I gotta say, Quinn Grimes, even
Yeah.
though he's been playing really well, I like to see him now have free reign the way he plays. I would love to see that.
Side. Grimes attacking, count it, 43 for Grimes.
Do we still have counsel?
Yes.
Okay, and him. I would. I have seen him play, and I really like the way he plays, the play style. He just hasn't got a lot of. Well, he has of recently, but to now get more play time, I would love to see how he flourishes.
Yeah, just Justin Edwards has looked good.
Mm.
He's had some good games. I think they just recently updated his contract, Jared Butler. And I think, when you're playing for an organization like the Sixers in the city of Philadelphia, right? Like it's expected that you're competing. So for some guys, you get thrown into that situation, a lot of pressure. And while they still have Paul George and Maxey and a fairly competitive starting five, I think this could be a good situation for those young guys to kind of know whether the organization is admitting it or not. Pressure's off, really. Like, even as fans, we can be mad, but also it's like, all right, we have to accept, like, the season's over. We'd rather it just get over with. Let's move on. So if some of these guys can get good minutes and grow together, that's really good because I'm a firm believer in depth for championship teams. And if you can have some of these young guys who are on cheap contracts be good options off the end of the bench, you'd love to see that. And I agree. I think Grimes is probably the guy I'm going to be looking at the most because he's our starting shooting guard right now, and he could be a starter even with a competitive Sixers team.
Yeah. My player is probably going to be a little bit of a sleeper pick. Adam Bona hasn't done so well in the NBA, but I see the potential there. His shot blocking skills there, his his finishing skills are there, and being under the tutelage of Andre Drummond will help him become a better rebounder because Andre Drummond is probably the best rebounder in the league. But okay, maybe not currently, but during his time in his prime, he was probably the best rebounder in the league.
For sure.
So, being able to be mentored by him will probably be a big help for him. I would say Jared McCain, but unfortunately he's hurt, and I really miss him. I can't wait for next season.
J-Mac. All right, let's move on to the NFL, and we've got a couple more names in the trade market. One just came off. As of when I was first writing this outline, Matt Stafford was in the air. He was potentially going to be traded. The Rams decided to restructure that contract and bring him back, which I think makes sense. Just to throw that out there to whoever wants to answer, the Rams won the division last year. Were kind of slept on just because they were in a weak division, got in, were like 13 yards away from beating the Eagles before Stafford got obliterated. But they won a chip a few years back. They're probably going to trade Cup, but you still got Puka Nacua, and you've still got a talented young defense, as we've talked about. Emmanuel, how competitive do you see this Rams team being in the future with Stafford, who's like 35, maybe older right now?
As long as you have Matthew Stafford as your quarterback with that type of roster, you will always be competitive. Matthew Stafford is a great quarterback. And you have a person in Jared Verse, the defensive end, the rookie who had an amazing season. He's going to step up on the defense. That defense is going to step up. I'm expecting Puka Nacua to step up and stay healthy as well. I'm really interested what they'll get for Cooper Kupp, but I think this team is still going to be competitive. I think they're still a playoff team, maybe a little lower on the board than some other teams out there that are more competitive, but I still see them as a playoff team.
I think it's great. I think it's great for multiple reasons. I think partially just because, usually when you have someone that's on the trade block, it's usually like, oh, fans also don't want him on the trade block. But with this one, I think the organization and fans love him. I think that, they see that he's putting in work, trying to get them as far as they can. And yeah, look at him. They almost beat the like that. We gotta put that in consideration. Even though we had mistakes, they still almost beat us. So I think it's very smart for him, them to sign him back and for him to stay.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, they flew under the radar last year, but we know Stafford's a big game player. Showed up a few years back and won him a championship. And he's getting up there in age, but I think he's one of those quarterbacks that are ageless. And I mean, he's going to be. We see what he can do with a good receiver. It's interesting to me though because they're probably going to trade Cup, and if they traded him, it seems like they maybe were going to be in a little bit of a rebuild or a retool because you don't know what that quarterback situation was. So it was kind of one move away. Getting rid of Stafford, you're not competitive. Keeping him, now you are. So it was just kind of interesting how they were just one tiny move away from doing a complete 180 on the perception of them. But another player that is most likely going to get traded is wide receiver Deebo Samuel of the 49ers. Dwayne, what team do you think is a good fit for Deebo?
I think Washington yet again should be the team to pick him up. It's just Jaden Daniels. Like you put him next to someone like that. I mean, you're getting a show.
I'm gonna disagree with you on that one. I don't think any of those teams are going to get Deebo Samuels. I don't think any team is going to get Deebo Samuels. He came up with his worst career season since 2020, where he only played 7 games. He might just be stuck in San Fran. I don't see anybody really willing to give up valuable draft assets or players for a player that has a large contract where he's getting paid 3 years, $75.5 million, I believe. Along with the fact that he's had a down year, who's really going to gamble with valuable assets for a player that's had a down season?
So I believe this is his last year on that contract though.
Okay.
So it's only 1 year. It's a almost $16 million cap hit. So that's what you're working with there.
Last year's contract. So you're going to trade for him, and you might have to re-up his contract depending on how things go. And you're going to be a team that you have to be sure that he's going to be able to produce because he only had 1,000 receiving yard season. So are you really going to trade for a player where you're not sure can actually produce at a high level that you'll need? I just see him sticking in San Fran. I don't care if he's miserable or not. You'll learn to love it.
Looking at the draft, that's coming up. The potential number one pick, Abdul Carter from the Penn State University. He's got a stress fracture in his foot, and there was some discussion whether he was going to get surgery or not and how that would affect his draft stock. He was advised against surgery, so as of now, he's not getting it. He didn't work out at the combine. So, Emmanuel, do you think he still goes number one? If you're a team looking to draft him, how concerned are you about this injury?
Well, currently, right now, the Titans own the number one pick in the draft. They have, nope, not Drake May, Will Levis as their quarterback. And I don't see them not picking up the best player in this draft, where this draft is questionable and weak when it comes to quarterback. You have Shador Sanders and you have Cam Ward. So these guys are the top 2 quarterbacks there, but I don't see them being the type that you would draft them with the number one pick. They're questionable and they may not work out. But Abdul Carter, he's the best prospect in this draft. He has the best physical capabilities probably in this draft as well. I see him doing perfectly fine even with the stress factor. And I think if you're a team, there may be some hesitancy towards it, knowing that I believe the stress fracture in his foot stress reaction, I believe it's called, right?
I think it's a stress fracture.
Stress fracture is a
Yeah.
bone, so more than likely teams might be a little hesitant with it. And if he drops down a couple of places, I'm sure the Eagles would love to pick him up. I will be glad to see that happen. But I think, unfortunately, he's probably still going to go number one to the Tennessee Titans, and I think they'll stick with Will Levis for one more year. And if they still do bad, you got a good draft class for quarterbacks next year, so you can pick one up then.
I believe he should still stay number one. This is one of those situations where some people are like, oh, he's injured. Oh, blah, blah. Wouldn't you rather pick up someone you know is possibly going to be pretty good, have him get healthy, and then be good, rather than skip out on him because he's injured right now? I don't know what the time management looks like when it's a stress fracture.
I think if he were to do surgery, it would be 6 to 8 weeks, I believe is what I saw.
I mean, that's not. I mean, it's not great.
Too bad. I was gonna say it's not too bad if you consider when when he's going to get the surgery done.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like you get it done now
Yeah.
than later.
Yeah. I also think you're looking at what team he's going to be on and be like, okay, I'll get it or not. I feel like the probability of him getting healthy and being good is still high. So you might as well take him at number one anyways.
Like Emmanuel said, this is a really weak quarterback class. But I mean, the Titans organization and the Giants organization, the two that maybe looking at quarterbacks, like I feel like they just draft the quarterback anyway, just because of they're so desperate and teams don't like to wait. I mean, I'm looking at a couple mock drafts here, and they have Cam Ward going first overall. And I read an article by a Browns outlet, and they were expecting Titans to get Ward, so they're expecting Carter to fall to them, which is an interesting situation of its own because Miles Garrett wants out, and Abdul Carter could be the next Miles Garrett. Does that maybe make Garrett want to stay and work with him?
Probably not. He wants to be in a winning organization. The Browns suck. And well deserved after they signed the quarterback that they had.
Last topic, and this is a fun one. The Green Bay Packers, or it was revealed that the Green Bay Packers proposed that the NFL ban the Tush Push, the infamous Eagles goal line play. You've all seen it. Gentlemen, as Eagles fans, we can just laugh at this as we sit number one with our Lombardi trophy. Haha, losers. I mean, Dwayne, what was your reaction to hearing this news?
When I first heard it, I looked at my father and I was like, "You hear this, right?" And he broke it down so perfectly, and I gotta give him mad respect for it. He said, "This is a play anybody can run, and yet nobody has run it." I said, "Well, the Ravens could." He's like, "You're right, they could, but has anybody run it? And if they have they run it successfully?" Oh, and also the play has an 88%, not 100. It's 88. Now, sure, it's a high percentage, sure, but that means somebody has stopped it. How about you just figure out how to stop it? And if you don't want to, just give up. So I mean, to me, it was hilarious. Like you're gonna complain about a team doing it, and we gotta ban it. Go try and do it. Maybe it works for you, maybe not. Y'all need help anyways.
My first reaction to this was recall to a meme. It goes soft, pretty boy, and then I can't say the next words. But that was my first thoughts when I saw this. I mean, every team in the NFL can run it. You said the Ravens. The Ravens do run it with a different variation of it where they use their tight ends instead. But not everyone can do it to the Eagles level. But just because a team can run a play at a high caliber doesn't mean it should be banned. If so, we would have a lot less plays in the NFL because a lot of teams can do certain plays a lot better than any other team in the NFL. So I think the Packers are just really soft about this. What do you expect? They're called cheeseheads for a reason. Cut through them easily.
Yeah, when I first saw it came out, the team hadn't been revealed yet, and I thought the Commanders, just because of that whole debacle with the dude jumping over, turned out to be Packers, which was just more funny because it wasn't even the reason they lost. The reasons that people give to get it banned are stupid, right? And they're like, "Oh, well, it works perfectly for the Eagles. We don't have someone that can squat 600 pounds." Okay, sorry. Get someone that can, that's why we made the play, because it works for our quarterback
Absolutely,
and our line. Exactly. I try to imagine if I wasn't an Eagles fan and I'm watching this play. I think I would find it annoying, but I'm not going to ban it. Exactly.
Right,
and it should be annoying. That's the point of the play. That's why you have a good play. I've seen clips of all different coaches and players being asked their opinion on it since the news came out. The one coach I've heard defend it getting banned was the Buccaneers coach. And if you remember, the Buccaneers stopped it in the playoffs last year. So he's like, why don't you guys just learn how to stop it? He knows how to stop it. He's done it before. So he's like, I don't know what y'all are whining about.
Watch film. Maybe you'll figure it out.
And then the other argument was that it's illegal, it's illegal formation. It shouldn't be. I was like, we've been doing it for 3 years now. I don't know the rule book that well, but I'm pretty sure the NFL does because they wrote it. So I think if it was illegal, they would have done something about it 3 years ago when we first ran the play.
It doesn't violate anything.
I think they say because the ball's hidden underneath the line, I don't know, some with the line of scrimmage, and I don't know the rules I don't care that much. I just
Yeah.
know that if they let something happen, that means it's not illegal.
Right.
I feel like if anything, the league gets pressured into making a more defined rule about it. Like, try to put it into the rule book where, like, this is what's allowed, this isn't what's allowed. But I hope that the NFL just grows a pair and ignores the Packers and just like, you guys suck.
It's the Packers. What was I say?
Yeah. And the other thing, I forget, I think it was the Bills coach who said there's a lot of health concern. Like, it's not safe. Like, no one's gotten hurt.
But it's football.
What
And
What
it's
are we
also
talking
football.
about?
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe for the health concern, Landon Dickinson did get hurt, I believe, or one of the.
He's a dog,
Friday.
man.
Yeah, he's a dog, and he still played through
He
it.
still
So, like,
played.
I mean, it's
Didn't-
football. If you
and
don't
this-
expect to get hurt, then you're playing the wrong sport.
Yeah, I was about to say, play some
I'll
golf.
tell you how you get hurt is when you have your player diving over the huddle and landing on our quarterback. That's going to get somebody hurt. And that's not the play. And I think, didn't even the Chiefs, Chris Jones was like lining up like
Yes.
vertically, just
Yes.
like, yeah, then you're going to get hurt.
Yeah,
when
you're
you
going
do
to
that.
get hurt. It's obvious. Or how about this? You train for it. Pause on this. Maybe work on your neck meat.
Oh.
Like you need.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean it's true. That's a key aspect of the tush push, that you are going head to head with somebody. And where does that affect? All on this neck right here, on the back neck. Pause.
Never skip neck day.
That's the point. Like, maybe that's what y'all need to work on. How many times have we gotten injured off of tush push?
Exactly. And if we get injured, we knew the risk. Like, that's on us.
It's so wild.
They hate us because they ain't us. What can I say? Well, that just about does it for this episode. Thank you for watching. Please consider liking, subscribing, following us on the socials, all that good stuff. And we will see you next time.